Conscious Matters. It's a safe space where we chat about how living consciously matters to our well-being, to the one of our surroundings and loved ones, as well as to the earth and humanity as a whole. Join me, Melissa DeBerry, for inspiring interviews with some of the most beautiful souls out there, individuals who are helping others to reach their highest selves and who bring light into this world. In every episode, we talk about conscious matters such as self-love, awareness, personal development, the power of yoga and meditation, self-medicine, the rise of holistic practices, and much more. We expand on our experiences, share tools that help live in peace, harmony, and alignment on a daily basis, and discuss about what we've learned along our healing journey. Get your mind, body, and soul ready for a ride in consciousness. Namaste, listeners.
Self-care becomes an experience that requires you to set time aside for yourself. A mindful pose that not only grounds you in the present moment, but also paves the way to access your internal world. These are the beautiful words of Marina, the founder of the online space Self Ceremony. It's Valentine's Day. Yep, we're back at it again. And while I love celebrations, to me, there is no better way to celebrate love than starting with self love. I did an episode on self love last year. Go check it out if you missed it. So, to follow up, I now want to focus on self care. We should love and care for ourselves every day, but I see Valentine's Day as a reminder of that in case we've been caught up in our everyday life, losing our love and care for ourselves in the process. But the thing is that even if we all know that self care is beneficial, it's still quite broad. A self care practice can work for your bestie, but feels very uncomfortable for you, and vice versa. Or with all of the current wellness hype and its billion trends, you just don't know where to start. That's why getting a little bit of help gaining clarity in the framework of how your energy works can not only be a great boost to your self care, but can also be utterly transformative. Who doesn't want that? Today, we'll look at self care through the human design lens. Human design is a natural system that gives you the blueprint to how your energy is designed to thrive. It's not a marginal religion, a pick and choose made up profile, nor a personality test like the Meyer Briggs or the Enneagram systems, which are both awesome nonetheless. I really love them. But let's go back to, yeah. Instead, your chart is calculated based on your birth date, time, and place. So you're pretty much born with your profile. It's your individual essence. This self discovery tool meets modern science with a blend of wisdom traditions and spiritual modalities. Even though it sounds a little bit out there, I'm aware. I'm always want to discover and explore self-discovery tools to improve every day as a human being in this challenging world. And also, I'm a fierce believer of the power of self-awareness, which is the foundation of self-love, self-care, self-acceptance, and ultimately compassion for self and others. What's super interesting and captivating about human design is that it underlines the way your intuition communicates with you, get you realigned with your unique energy flow so you can be in sync with your true nature. Putting it simply, it just opens you up to greater acceptance of yourself and helps you to own your own magic. For some, this might be a far fetched concept, a quite woo woo, and that's okay. But why not dive deeper? As I always say, knowledge is power. When you gain self knowledge, not only knowing who you are, but understanding the intricacies of your own functioning too, it can really transform the way you connect with your inner wisdom, leaving the resistance aside and make you approach life effortlessly. To carry on this conversation today, I invited Allison, a human design expert, among all of the other things she offers as an esoteric art consultant at Color Shift, the space she created for those who are at a crossroads in their journey, helping them gain more self awareness, feel empowered, and leaving them with a sense of self advocacy to start the next chapter of their lives. Before meeting Allison, I heard about human design, but it kind of felt airy. I didn't really connect with this modality until she read my chart. Afterwards, I started to be more aware of my own functioning, and it definitely mirrored what she told me when explaining my profile. Since she's the one who truly introduced me to human design, I couldn't think of a better person for this chat about self care according to each human design profile. She's also one of my branding agency clients, and I just love what her brand brings to this world. So I had to share. Listen after this jam. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Melissa.
How are you?
Great. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
So, today we're going to talk about self care and human design.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Awesome, then. Can you tell us what is human design to start off with?
Sure. Really, the way that I see human design is that it is a tool for self-reflection. And it's based on the very specific place and time of your birth. And you can pull up your human design chart online. There are a few different websites where you can find your chart, including mybodygraph.com.
I'll put it in the description.
Great. Yeah. With these human design charts, they are just these very, very detailed kind of maps of our energy based on 9 different energy centers. And they represent this layering of 4 different ancient practices. It represents a layering of a Western astrology chart with the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, with the Chinese I Ching system, as well as with the mystical Kabbalah chart. So it's this very complex chart that layers those elements. Shows us a map of this very unique energy. There are millions of variations of different possible human design charts. And the way that we can use it, as I said, I see it as this tool of self-reflection. It's not so much to label ourselves as to, discover more about ourselves. And we can use this map to contemplate, what it says about what the best way is for us to make our decisions, for example. The charts indicate that. What our patterns might be in terms of the way we think, or the way we expend our energy, the way we use our life force energy, the way we process our emotions, the way we see the world. So it offers this really rich picture of, just the way our energy operates on multiple levels. And it also can help us understand ourselves better, and also how we relate to other people. There are a lot of indications in the chart about how we generally, either maybe are more extroverted, more introverted, how we exchange energy with other people as well. So it gives this, potentially very multi-dimensional picture of ourselves through this map of these different energy centers.
Sounds kind of magical.
Yeah. I definitely think, it has that kind of magical multi-dimensional element. So it's a really fun thing to discover and to help see yourself maybe in a new light. Often when people learn about their charts, there is this element of recognition, and that's really exciting. And then, it can also bring up a lot of different aspects of, your personality and energy that maybe you hadn't thought about. So it can have both this element of familiarity and this element of surprise, and many different layers that you can spend a lot of time delving into.
Wow. How did you get into working with this tool, and how has it changed your life personally regarding the self-care, self-love perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I first read about it, some articles online, listened to some podcasts that touched on it. Probably it's been about 4 years ago, maybe 3 to 4 years ago. And my curiosity was piqued because I love all sorts of different esoteric systems. And I thought, well, let me get a human design reading. And it was just really revelatory, because in the reading, through this chart, I learned about all of these different aspects about myself that were, that were in the chart that, gave me a sense of, appreciation maybe for certain things that I had been frustrated by. And, the chart reflected back at me that this is how my energy operates. And it was really kind of revelatory to be able to kind of embrace certain aspects of myself. Just one example is my human design chart talks about how, I can sometimes express my ideas in maybe a little bit unconventional ways, for example. And that was something, that I often was very self-conscious about. And it helped me kind of like accept and embrace that more. And it helped me navigate very specifically through a time where I was really unhappy with work. And that's part of the reason I was searching out different modalities to understand myself better so that I could, make decisions better going forward and ideally, navigate out of this very unhappy work situation. And it helped, give me the tools to realize what kind of, inner guidance I could really rely on, how my particular, intuition is, wired in my system. And so it gave me that tool to feel so much more self-confident about making decisions based on my unique, energy. And so that just helped in many different ways. And it helped me get out of that work situation I'm no longer in, thanks to that discovery. Yeah.
And would you say that the fact that your human design chart brings a lot of self-awareness, it actually brought you this kind of self-confidence at the same time, or? Absolutely.
100%. It really helped me embrace, my own inner knowing, so much more. And, I'm so passionate about helping other people really embrace that, because I think, we can all live more fulfilling lives if we really trust ourselves, and if we can kind of tune out, so much of the social messaging that we have in the world that tells us to be a certain way, that there's a right way of doing things. Human design encourages us, to look at the way we individually operate so that we can make our best decisions internally. And I feel like I really benefited from that kind of turning inward.
Seriously, I feel like it's amazing because we are brought up in a way that is very mainstream. We have to all look the same, be the same, act the same, go do kind of the similar studies to end up with the same jobs. Like it's like lawyer, doctor, accountant, or like these main things. And human design truly shows your individuality. Even though your energy is a little bit outside the box, like what would be considered outside the box, it helps you to be okay with it. And I don't know, like to me, the self-awareness that I got thanks to you also, because you introduced me to human design is really like a big revelation. I would say.
Yeah. That's so exciting to hear. And and I really love it because it does celebrate our like radical individuality. These maps are so detailed and they can help us see ourselves in a new way and just appreciate that we all can be very different as much as we all at the same time are connected. But it's really through embracing our uniqueness that we can then, interact with other people in a more meaningful way and ultimately contribute to the collective in a more meaningful way if we really radically, accept our unique and very multidimensional selves.
That was beautifully said.
Very kind of you. Yeah, it means a lot coming from a reflector, since you're a very special energy type.
The 1%, but we'll get into that.
But high compliment from me.
You're very welcome. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
And how can human design nourish our soul, our own self-care?
Yeah, I think it's through that process of helping us, understand ourselves more. I feel like that's at the foundation of everything. So the more we understand ourselves and our needs, at any given moment, obviously we also grow through time. And it's not that, this system is limiting in a way that we're categorized and that's just the way we always are.
Set in stone.
Yeah. It actually shows us areas in which we particularly are meant to grow and develop wisdom in our life. That's in the parts of the chart that are these shapes that are white rather than being colored in, are the energy centers where we particularly, are really meant to learn and grow in this life.
Can you,
And
sorry to cut you, but can you explain
sure.
the colored centers and the white ones?
Sure. Yeah. There are 9 different energy centers. And when they're colored in, it means that you have more consistent energy in those areas. And it's not neither good nor bad to have consistent energy or not.
It's just like that.
Yeah. It's just the way that your energy operates. And there are many wonderful things about having, consistent energy. And then in the areas, like I said, that are not colored in, those can be the areas where we are even more sensitive to the energies around us, and where we can take in a lot of energy. And if we're not conscious about it, we can kind of amplify that energy and, be run by that energy that's not ours if we're not so mindful of it. But then if we look at it in another way, we can also learn a lot through experiencing many different kinds of energies in those open centers. So that's just a quick kind of explanation. If you want me to go into all of the energy centers, I can.
No. It was just like, because
it's a lot of detail. Yeah.
It might be a lot of details, but it was just like, since you mentioned colored in and white centers, like for the people who don't know about human design, to understand a little bit better what you meant.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty hard. It's pretty abstract. So
that's true.
If you don't have your chart, this conversation might feel a little bit, abstract.
You said it's on bodygraph.com.
Mybodygraph.com is one of the websites where you can look it up. Yeah.
So you can pull up your chart over there.
Hopefully everybody will look up their chart and start contemplating it.
So sorry, go ahead with what you were saying before.
Yes. Fundamentally, the way that it can nourish our soul is really through helping us understand ourselves better, and understand our needs better. And it gives such a detailed kind of reflection often on what our unique energetic needs are, that we can, it gives you different ways to think about them from the way that, yes, you may interact with other people, the way that you may want to spend your time, but also the kind of environment that you most, thrive in, the way of, processing your intuition that's specific to you. So it allows you to, contemplate all these different individual aspects, that you can then respond to, shape, the decisions that you make, in terms of your day-to-day life, and as well as your big decisions, in response to those kinds of needs and preferences.
Yeah. One thing that really helped me was the work schedule. It helps to know, because some people are good like being 100 every day at work. Others need to work a lot in the morning and then have the afternoon free, or sometimes others needs to, I don't know, let's say work 3 days a week and then 2 days off to like work in bulks. So that helps also to know what kind of energy you have in store to be able to know how much you can pull out. And
absolutely. It can give you a really detailed picture of your optimal workflow.
Exactly.
And it's, it comes from many different parts of the chart. So, I know if somebody does kind of pull up their chart, it will be very enigmatic. And so generally, there are a lot of resources where you can find out more about human design online, but generally it is good, to get a reading to be able to walk you through, and draw out all of these different elements.
Yeah, and make more sense
from
out
the
of
charts.
it.
Yeah. But it's true. Yeah. Figuring out what your ideal workflow is, that's a big part of a lot of people's lives, and doing something where you feel more in flow rather than, doing what everyone else does.
Exactly.
And kind of going against the current of your own energy can be really life-changing. Yeah. Just changing the exact, pattern of work hours can make a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference because it's also taking care of yourself when you in your own energy flow, because we work minimum 8 hours a day every day. So we spend more time at work than anywhere else in the other area of our lives. So knowing your own energy flow is super important. So you can take care of yourself in this way too. And
Absolutely.
okay, I'm gonna ask you, like, if you can share self-care advice for each of the 5 human design types to implement into their own self-care toolkit. But I don't think you mentioned the 5 different human design types yet.
Sure, sure. Well, I'll go through each of them as I kind of give recommendations for each
Okay.
type. And you'll see this listed on your chart. If you do pull it up online, you'll see your energy type is listed right up at the top. And so one energy type is generators. And manifesting generators are really a subsection of those of generators. And generators and manifesting generators have a lot of like life force energy. They're 70% of the population, and they're like the builders in the world who have their sacral energy centers lit up. And so they have a lot of, life force energy that's available to expend, and that ideally they're expending on things that in turn light them up rather than investing their energy in things that drain them.
Yeah.
And so in terms of self-care for generators as well as manifesting generators, I really like, kind of starting with making lists of things that you love, things that where you just get excited and like where you're viscerally drawn to the idea of doing these kinds of, activities, because they just, bring you excitement, and try to think about ways you can integrate more of those activities into your life. It could be small things, it could be big things, but I always, really suggest with generators and manifesting generators that they write down these lists, because that makes it tangible, and that can really encourage them to integrate more of those specific activities that can really, add to their energy. And within that, especially like dancing and movement practices can be really wonderful for generators and manifesting generators, especially because that can, be a way to get in touch with your life force energy, kind of get out of your head and get into this like just central part of your body that just, responds in ways where it feels lit up when you're doing something that you really love.
Bring a little bit more joy.
To bring joy, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe that's, maybe on your list would be like certain types of music. And whatever those things are that are on your list, spend more time doing them and try to cut out the things that don't drain you. Sometimes, there are very particular foods, for example, that we like really love, and give yourself permission to like really appreciate and enjoy those, especially if you're a generator and a manifesting generator. And yeah, just
preferably
allow them
healthy foods, or
I say indulge
foods.
as long as you're not draining your energy. Indulge, like, and really appreciate that. Don't feel guilty. Indulge and invest, your time preparing and like consuming what really gives you energy. So tap into yourself and listen to what it lights you up again, like versus what drains you, and try to make more space for that. Try to indulge more in that. As much as possible, because then that has, ripple effects of bringing, more joy into your life, and that in turn, lights up the people around you too. So more time focused on that pure visceral joy. And then for projectors, they're a type that are about 20% of the population, and I'm a projector. And they don't have their own life force energy, but instead they have a kind of talent or aura, more specifically, that can really see things with a very specific perspective, can really, and that can be used to really help guide people. Generators, manifesting generators have this aura of, this life force energy, this broad, lit up aura when they're operating in their own energy. that's really like magnetic, that like pulls life to them. And projectors instead have this more kind of penetrating energy because they have this ability to like see into other people's auras. And yeah, they don't have their own life force energy. They can have certain kinds of energy, but they don't have this sacral energy.
What do you mean by sacral energy?
Oh, sorry. That's the life force energy. That's the sacral center that generators and manifesting generators have, that gives them that kind of like, pure joy and life force, ideally in their lives. So they have that open, so they can, experience it in different ways. It's just not consistent. And so in terms of self-care for projectors, one thing that can be really good is, really investing in practices where you clear out your energy. Because often they have very open designs where they're taking on a lot of other people's energies. So I find things like salt baths that really help clear out our energy fields can be really wonderful, as a projector. And then investing time, particularly like in relationships, like maybe making time at least every week, if not every day, to really connect with somebody who really can see you. Projectors can see other people so clearly that we like really love when other people can also see us, and particularly like invite us to share our perspective and share our wisdom. So to have that one person you can call or at least text every day, where you can really have that satisfaction of like sharing what you see. That's just something that is so gratifying to projectors. So finding time for that every day, I think, can be really wonderful.
That's good. And what about projectors who don't have a bathtub?
Or just like a salt scrub in the shower.
Okay.
That's
because I was about to say a
good.
walk in nature or something.
And nature is so wonderful. Yeah. For generators, for all types, nature is wonderful. So for generators and manifesting generators, for example, it's like spend time in the nature that like makes you really excited. For projectors, spend time in nature where like you can just, kind of release some of the energy you may have picked up in a lot of your open centers, and where you can, see and observe nature and all these beautiful patterns in nature that maybe, you might be particularly receptive to. So just different ways of interacting with nature are definitely, some of my favorites for all the energy types, for sure. And then for manifestors, they're about 10% of the population, and they have an aura that is more self-enclosed. And they're an energy type that are meant to really initiate new things in the world and kind of like go out and have this kind of like boss energy of like, bringing new things to life, and ideally like directing other people in their very powerful vision, getting people on board who want to support whatever vision it is that manifestors have. And they don't have all this energy to like fulfill necessarily all of the things that they can envision. But they have a lot of energy to start them.
Okay. Not necessarily to carry out the project until the end, but to get the impulse
to get it going
started. Okay.
Yes. They can have very strong impulses, and they want to be able to express that and not be held back. And so it's best not to try to tell a manifestor what to do. So even with self-care, I would say like, okay, for manifestors, like,
manifestors is just recommendations.
Just something to think about. And then you decide, because they'll often have these like really powerful urges. And so, so I would just encourage manifestors for self-care to like, think about like, what is that urge today in terms of like, what you feel is the most important, and put it on the calendar. Often they, manifestors could have a lot of different responsibilities. And so having time for themselves where they can like really give themselves permission to like go in whatever direction they want can be really, really useful. So even just like mapping out that time on their calendar for them to have their own unstructured time, rather than being kind of,
on the
committed
go.
to on the go, or committed to, doing what other people want, that time for themselves. And And so if they are, people who like things, in terms of self-care, like, if they are going to a spa, for example, like if that's the type of self-care they're doing that day, or, being able to really choose like exactly like what they want on the menu, like customize it and give direction, like this is exactly what I want, would be the most satisfying version of self-care, I think, where they can just.
But the recommendation for manifestors will be to actually plan time. I mean, their me time.
To make time, calendar. Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
To really be able to decide and follow their urge without being in any way hampered by anyone else.
Just
go
plan
for what
time
they want.
And then do whatever you want with that time.
Yes. Okay. And then reflectors are a very rare type, only 1% of the population, and that is your type.
Yeah, that's funny, because I was about to say, when you were listing all of the types, like, yeah, that's me. Like, I can see myself in.
Yes. And that's exactly what a reflector does. Yeah. They reflect back other people's energy. And so they can experience all these different energy types, like day to day, depending on who they're around or what the general energies are in the field each day, because I won't go too into that, but there are just like with astrology, where there are different general energies depending on where the planets are each day. Reflectors are particularly sensitive to that, and so they can experience what it's like to be all of these different types. They have all open energy centers, and so they are these very, very magical types where they can basically morph day to day, or depending on who they're around, into any of these energy types.
It's like a little chameleon, like very adaptable.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's particularly wonderful for reflectors to be around people who they feel really, supported by, and they can play such an important role because they can reflect our energy back to us. Reflectors ideally are these guides, like at the center of a community, at the center of a supportive community. Reflectors can be there to tell us collectively kind of how we're doing. They can reflect that back at us. So they can be these very wise people at the center of a community, which is exactly what I think you are. So
you're too kind.
You are living in your element, it seems like. And so, so it's particularly important for reflectors that they put themselves in environments where they feel the most nourished. So it's not so much about what you're doing, but in a way it's about where you're doing it. So energetically thinking about your environment. And if you're not feeling great, as a form of self-care, really think about how you can move into a space that is more supportive. And by environment, I mean all aspects of like a physical place, as well as like the people you're surrounded by. And so
very important.
Yeah. And so because, you're so open as a reflector, you can take on so many different kinds of energies. It can be really nice to have some alone time to clear that out. And so particularly, nature can be a great place to just allow your energy to kind of be, any energy that's been frustrating, allow it to kind of be absorbed in nature, to have that alone time to really, to clear out your energy. Or maybe you want to have some alone time, but also have some stimulation. So like something like going to a museum, on your own can be really wonderful supportive practice for a reflector, because there they can, spend time kind of like contemplating different cultures, contemplating different artistic points of view. And so for a reflector, that might be really nourishing.
It is very nourishing, except in 2020, 2021, where everything is closed.
But one day,
yes. Reflectors.
Yes, exactly. And obviously all these things are good, for any energy type. It's just also thinking about, what particularly might be supportive for any of these types.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like all of the recommendations are amazing, but some people who don't know anything about human design could be like, Oh, I could plan me time. That's very necessary for me. Or I could spend time in nature, and I feel like I sample other people's energies. But it's not about what could be for you, but more into what can be very supportive for your own type. Some people are can just like do stuff because it makes them feel good, but these stuff can be a need for others. Um, and I think that's how you explain it here, right?
Well, I mean, I was just describing things based on just one category within your charts. This energetic type is one layer of a very, very multi-layered chart. So if we go in and look at your particular chart as a generator, there will be other indicators
Yeah,
that where we can add to that picture. So that was a very broad brushed picture.
of course.
But I think it does, yeah. Hopefully it gave a little bit of a sense of like different approaches that each energy type might lead with.
Yeah. And I think like one type might need something more, like might need something, whereas the other will do that, but just like as a leisure, or it's okay, it's good to do that, but it's not a profound need. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So
And
yeah.
and for reflectors, for example, there is a profound need to be in an environment that is really, really supportive. Otherwise, some of the other types can be bit more resilient with that. But with reflectors, and really anybody with an open G center, which is the diamond at the center, if it's yellow, you have that defined. But if it's white, that means you're really particularly sensitive to your environment. So no
And
matter what you try to do in terms of, kind of pushing yourself through something, if you're not in that space, again, on all levels, in terms of the people around you, in terms of, where you are physically, that it can, life can just be much harder and not as much in flow. So.
and I do second that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And especially now, we're spending so much time in our homes with lockdown, happening in, many places across the world. And so, you can even make adjustments. I love thinking about, making very specific adjustments in your immediate home environment that can support your energy type too. So that's just another way of like, again, it would be based on a lot more specifics in your chart, but it's something that you can use as a tool then to influence your environment, to optimize it, to be more supportive to you day to day.
At least to get started before
Yes.
getting into the nitty gritty of your own chart.
Yes.
Human design is also based on the flow of the male and female energy. How does that affect self care practices of the different types?
Well, yeah, there are different elements in the charts that are, kind of have, this more receptive quality versus a more active quality. There are these different elements. Again, it gets more detailed, but I think it's really important to particularly honor, and think about ways in which, we are often like designed to be more receptive, whereas our culture often tells us to like, act out the more active, or, what can be seen as like the masculine and rational ways of being. And our
Yeah.
charts really show us areas where we can, take on a more receptive kind of stance and listen to ourselves. Use our intuition is often associated with a kind of like receptive feminine energy. And so human design can tell us very specifically where we can really, this is kind of paradoxical, activate those receptive parts of our chart, but really honor those parts of our chart.
Yeah.
For example, there are 4 arrows around the head in this, in the part of your chart with all the different shapes. There are 4 different arrows, and the bottom right arrow, each of the arrows can be pointed either left or right, and they indicate many different things. But the bottom right arrow, if it's pointing right, that means you're meant to have a very strategic kind of perspective, and meant to really, like be very direct and specific about like what you're going after. But if the arrow is pointing right, you're meant to be much more open in what's called your view perspective. You're meant to, like allow yourself to take in the possibilities and not necessarily map things out as much as be open to different possibilities. And so that's just one example of the ways that kind of polarity of how it might be best for you to use your energy is mapped out in the chart.
Disclaimer here. When we talk about male and female energy, it has nothing to do with gender. It's just like the male is more active and the female is more seen as more receptive.
Exactly. Yeah. And the charts also, can tell us, what that unique balance is for us. I mean, we all have facets of both of these, but just some people, might tend towards, expressing themselves in a way that's more on one side of the polarity versus the other. And part of that can be also like the charts can tell us about how we might be more extroverted, where we take more energy, from being around other people, whereas some people, their charts will really show that they need more of that alone time. So there are many different aspects of the charts that tell us about that, particularly the profiles, which are these combinations of two different numbers, can tell us whether we really thrive on a lot of like alone time versus wanting to be more engaged with others.
Since we're talking about how human design is such a supportive tool, like self-discovery, self-awareness, self-confidence, the brand strategist in me has to ask you something, which is how human design influences the way you brand your wellness business.
Yeah, it definitely does. Because I really, embrace my qualities as a projector in particularly. And as a projector, what I've learned from human design is that it works best, when I just allow myself to be seen. I allow my very particular focus, for example, in my business, just to be seen, and not try to sell it, but just kind of like allow that to be there. And as a projector, it really helps when I wait for people to invite me in. And so allowing myself to be seen, but then being kind of patient and understanding that people who feel like I'm the right energetic fit will come to me and recognize me and then invite me to work with them, is just a way for me to be more in flow with what that, how that energy operates as a projector. So in brand messaging, all I want to do is just be clear about, who I am, what I offer, and not try to sell anything, not giving a hard sell, convincing anybody. And so that also means like showing what my particular point of view is as a projector. Every projector, can have a very particular kind of perspective. Projectors generally are people, who, as I mentioned before, especially be valuable in terms of providing guidance to other people. And that's partly because projectors not only can see kind of other people's energy in a lot of ways, but they can also see patterns and systems. So it's no surprise that, a lot of projectors really like systems like human design. They like seeing these kind of, cosmic patterns in the world. Or other kinds of patterns. It can be.
And when you say like for the people who are a little bit more practical, like when you say seeing other people's energy is more seeing through the person, like really getting what the other person is about, or what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, energy. Yeah, energy question, is it's so abstract, but yet it's like so tangible to me.
You catch the vibe of the other person.
Yeah. So for me, the way that I see energy is, I particularly see like people's talents, people's gifts. Like that's what really strikes me, and what I kind of, work with a lot in my sessions is like really seeing like people's unique qualities. And so the chart helps me to see that and to, to give kind of language to that. But it's a little bit untangible what I'm talking about, seeing people's energy.
I had to ask.
Sorry. And also, just maybe articulating it well enough. But
no, it makes sense. It's just like you for you, it's easy to see other people's potential.
Other people's potential and how they might express that in the world, how they might what their kind of contributions might be, what their gifts might be in the world.
That's a cool gift to have.
So, oh, thank you. So yeah, so in my branding, I just try to, just, very clearly show what my particular specialty is. Because as I said, every projector can have a different way of seeing things, a different perspective to share. And so it's just about, making that kind of visible, and just trusting that people who are a fit will respond and will invite me. And I really value learning about, from human design, that for projectors, it's best to wait for that invitation, to wait to be invited, so that just the energy flows much better that way. And so that was, a huge lesson for me, to just let go of the situations where maybe I was, trying to offer advice that was unsolicited, or put myself into situations where I wasn't really seen. Making those changes, has been really important. So, so I apply that to how I approach my branding in terms of my business. And I do have a channel, which is, we didn't go into that yet, but channels are these lines that connect energy centers. I have a channel that it relates to having kind of like energy for entrepreneurship and salesmanship. But at the same time, my strength isn't necessarily in kind of like, marketing, et cetera. So it's also, as a projector, I can see other people's talents. And so I can see talents like your talent for really understanding how to put brand messaging together. So for me, it's really important to be able to, reach out and, work with somebody like you, who has a gift, in that particular area. So again, it's about where how I kind of optimize, my energy in exchange with other people. So that is one of my keys.
Thank you for seeing my talent too. It's well appreciated.
Yes. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And so, I'm still at the very early stage in terms of my practice. So I don't have, very expansive branding at the moment, but I have that seed where all I'm trying to do is just represent myself, just be true to myself. And you really also have helped me with that, like understand, and articulate, my unique value. That's all I'm really trying to put out there.
And it's, honestly, like what you do is amazing.
Oh,
and I'm so glad I participated in expressing your voice in a way that fits your own profile and yourself.
Oh, thank you. So lovely.
And I always ask this question to my guest, since he's on Conscious Matters and it's all about consciousness. So this question is related to living more consciously. Do you have simple daily habits you do to be and act more consciously? And if yes, could you recommend some that would apply to all of the human design types? Even though they're all different, they have their own needs. There's always like general self-care habits that can apply to the general population, if I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I think just in general, for me, being conscious comes back, always to just this practice of presence, of being with ourselves, having, self-awareness, and acceptance of ourselves. So I see, contemplating our charts and using human design as a way really to have this like broader practice of like self-awareness and self-compassion. And that to me is really, really important, because the more we also have compassion to ourselves, the more we can have compassion for other people. Human design can help us understand our own charts, but also other people's charts, and understand their differences, and therefore be able to respect them and have compassion for them more. It's not really that I feel like you have to do something as much as just like be more accepting. To me, that makes a really big difference in terms of, living in a conscious way. Just finding areas where, maybe we judge ourselves each day, give ourselves a hard time, where we're, maybe feel like we're falling short from certain expectations, and just, be more gentle and just let it go if it's not in alignment with, who we feel like we are on a deeper level, allowing that to let it go. So also, practices on a more practical level that like help us, connect with that energy are just, really important. And for me, are, connecting with that deeper sense of myself, I find just the things that we talked about before for the different energy types, spending time in nature and different kinds of practices where I'm like, clearing out my energy and just trying to get back into my own energy, are all really helpful. So whether it's, meditative kind of walks in nature, listening to music, having, a meditation practice where just, I'm just gently breathing and, kind of centering myself in my own energy. Those are all different kinds of things that I draw on each day to just, try to live more consciously and not really try to do anything other than just, express my own energy and be open to, appreciating other people's energy and uniqueness in the world.
And you said something that's super interesting because you talked about self-acceptance. Most of the time, we're very much into self-love, self-care, which are incredibly important, but we forget about self-acceptance as well. And having this beautiful self-discovery tool is important, but once you have the information, is important, as you said, to have this self-acceptance, to be able to have compassion for yourself, because we live in a world where there's a lot of expectations, especially in the capitalist society, where we have to, as I always say, produce a lot, be on the go, etc. But once you see your own individual energy flow, your own talents, your own gift, as you perfectly said before, it helps you to have a little bit more compassion for yourself. When you realize that you cannot produce, like, I don't know, someone you did your studies with, or you cannot be as productive and efficient as your colleague, even though you bring out awesome results, but you're just not on the same wavelength.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like that that energy of self-acceptance is just very calming energy. So, a lot of us today, I think, are just, often very frazzled and, there's a lot of anxiety, but focusing on kind of letting go, not just, doing, but having that kind of balance of like being receptive and letting go of certain expectations, and just coming back to yourself. I feel like, there are many different ways to do that, but in terms of the bigger kind of pattern of, energy, I feel like that's really wonderful. And also, having a deeper sense of self-trust and trusting your intuition also is something that I think is really important, and that most of us can probably, develop even further. Most of us have a certain kind of intuition, but then we disregard it. Because we're reaching for all of these things and seeing all of these examples of, models where it seems like we're meant to be a certain way.
Exactly. And also, I think it's so easy to compare yourself. And since we're always surrounded by people and trends and everything, we tend to tap into others' energies more than we tap into our own. So, as you said, clearing your energy, doing some meditation, walking in nature, just like to recenter, like ground yourself, truly helps to be more conscious about your own self and also how you interact with the world afterwards.
Yeah. And I think, the more centered you are and more accepting of your own energy, and the more compassionate you are to yourself, again, the more you can share that with others and just be in more flow, and appreciate so many of these amazing things that often we overlook because we become so self-obsessed and so self-critical. So it ultimately results in more of this expression of love in the world ultimately.
Yes, definitely. That was beautiful. Where can we find you, Allison? Because you offer human design consultancy.
I do. Yeah. I actually have in terms of my practice, human design is one part of it. And then I actually also integrate looking at people's astrology charts, using like Western astrology. I like to look at both of those systems actually. And so I offer readings that combine them, or, that can focus more on one or the other if people prefer that. But I offer that through a practice called Color Shift. And my website is color-shift.com. So that's the best place to find me. And I always love meeting new people and getting to witness.
She's also on Instagram.
Oh, Instagram. That's true. Yes. I'm also on Instagram under Color Shift. It's _color _shift and then another underscore. I don't post very often. And that's another example of me just being me, because I'm clearly not trying to fit anything else. But I'm there, and even if I don't post very often,
we can send you invitations.
Absolutely, I love invitations, and just getting to meet new people who are interested in these. Most of the people who I work with are really interested in things like healing and wellness. And so I know that people who are, listening to this podcast, if you're interested in things like being more conscious, then I always, get along and have great experiences with people who are interested in those kinds of themes.
That's amazing. So people, you know where to check her out. And thank you so much, Allison. That was beautiful to talk with you, to always learn so much from you. That's all.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. And I always love talking to you.
Thank you to have taken the time to listen to me and my guest talking about conscious living. Conscious Matters is a self-produced podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and or donate. 5 stars always preferred. Your support will help to keep on raising the collective consciousness together. Talk to you soon.